Good afternoon, I'm David Hunt, owner of GameMasters Guild, and today I want to welcome you to another episode of 10 Magic the Gathering counterspells you may not have heard of. Stick around and let's check them out.
Okay, first counterspell on our list is Cancel. It's a 3-cost, 2 blue, and 1 colorless. Straight up, counter target spell. This particular counterspell was printed in 10th edition, however it was widely reprinted in a number of sets. Next up we have another 3-cost counterspell called Dissolve. Costs 2 blue and 1 colorless. Counter target spell and scry 1. By using scry you can set up your next card draw, which is pretty nice for blue and again, pretty sneaky. This was printed in Theros and then again reprinted in Iconic Masters. Yet again, we have another 3-cost counterspell, 1 blue, 2 colorless, called No Escape. This card is exclusively from War of the Spark, and this counterspell only counters a target creature or planeswalker spell. Now, if you do counter a creature or planeswalker with this card, you get to exile it instead of putting it in that owner's graveyard, which that's pretty nice because you know that card's not going to be coming back up again. And also as an added bonus, you still get to scry 1. This next counterspell is for all you Magic players who like to mill your opponents to death. It costs 2 blue, 2 colorless. It's called Countermand. It's exclusively found in Journey into Nyx. And with this, you can counter target spell, and its controller puts the top 4 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. That means you just got rid of 5 of their cards with 1 counterspell. That's awesome. A little pricey at 4 cost, but I think it's pretty powerful for what it does. Rethink is a counterspell found only in the set Prophecy. It costs 1 blue and 2 colorless to cast, and this time you get to counter target spell unless its controller pays X, where X is its converted mana cost. Essentially, you're making someone play twice as much mana for that spell they're trying to cast, and if they can't afford it, that spell is out of there. Here's one of the most expensive counterspells to make my list, and that is Overwhelming Intellect. And it was originally in Saviors of Kamigawa and was also reprinted in the dual deck Izzet vs. Golgari. It's 6 costs, 2 blue, 4 colorless, counter target creature spell, kind of limited. However, you get to draw cards equal to that spell's converted mana cost. Just depending on how your deck runs and depending on what your opponents are playing, may or may not be a bad choice, but you're definitely going to want some mana ramp if you're going to be putting this in your deck. This 4-cost counterspell comes from Dragon's Maze. It's called Mind Static. Costs 1 blue with 3 colorless. And you can counter target spell unless its controller pays 6. 6 is a pretty hefty cost to have to play to prevent a spell from being countered. I think most people are just going to let it get countered. Finally, a low-cost counterspell. Invasive Surgery from Shadows over Innistrad. It was printed only in Shadows over Innistrad and costs 1 blue. However, it counters only a target sorcery spell. However, it has Delirium. And if there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard, search the graveyard, hand, and library of that spell's controller for any number of cards with the same name as that spell. Exile those cards, then that player shuffles his or her library. Not a good commander card, however, good for any other deck. I think this card would also be really good in a blue mill deck, just because you have the opportunity to not just counter 1 sorcery spell, but you also have the chance to get rid of 3 other copies of that card. And you're using 1 card to get rid of 4 other copies that you can surgically remove. I think this is a good card. Turn Aside is another 1-cost counterspell. It was originally printed in Scars of Mirrodin, Eldritch Moon, and it was available in the Mystery Boosters. With Turn Aside, you can counter target spell that targets a permanent you control. It's got some limited use, but if you're in an environment where you're getting a bunch of other spells that are targeting your permanents, this is definitely one to add into your deck. Finally, we come to Remand, a 2-cost counterspell, 1 blue, 1 colorless. This particular one was printed in Ravnica Cedia Guilds. It was also a Friday Night Magic promo, and it saw a reprint in the dual deck Jace vs. Vraska, and was also available in the Modern Masters 2015 edition. With Remand, you can counter target spell, and if you do, you return that spell to its owner's hand. Not super great, however, you do still get the draw card, which for me, I think is a bonus. At the very least, you got an inexpensive counterspell that buys you some time, so maybe you can draw into a more solid counterspell, or another key card in your deck to complete your win condition.
Thanks again for sticking around and checking out this episode of 10 more Magic the Gathering counterspells you may not have heard of. And while you're at it, be sure to subscribe, check out my other videos and playlists, and also if you haven't done so, be sure to ring the bell so that way you can be notified of all the videos as they come out. Thanks again for watching, and stay safe, play great games, and I'll see you real soon.